Fortnite have been updating their game almost every week for 4.5 years, but some of these updates have made us say, why Fortnite? As we're taking a look at 15 of Fortnite's worst updates. Like back in Chapter 1, Season 10, when Fortnite nerfed turbo building. Imagine you wake up one day and there's huge delay between the placement of your buildings in Fortnite. But that's exactly what happened back in August 2019, as people woke up to the new Fortnite update to see that building had basically been ruined. You could not 90. The placement time between each of your building piece had gone from 0.005 seconds, so almost instantly, to 0.15 seconds in an attempt to make turbo building not as strong. However, everyone hated it, and in less than 46 hours, Fortnite had reverted the change and building went back to normal. Glider redeploy was added in Chapter 1, Season 6, and allowed you to jump off of anywhere on the Fortnite island and redeploy without an item. It made getting out of really tall build battles completely safe. And I'll be honest, I quite like this update because I didn't die from full damage as much, but a lot of people didn't like it. Fortnite enabled it and then disabled it shortly afterwards and re-enabled it all the way to the end of Chapter 1, Season 6 until it was ultimately removed in Season 7. It caused games to end really fast, and a lot of people didn't like the fact that you could just glide out of gunfights and escape super easily. Instead, Fortnite brought back Glider redeploy in Chapter 1, Season 7 as an item that you could use, but that was also eventually vaulted and hasn't returned since. Now, if you're like me, you probably love overpowered weapons, but the addition of a compact SMG back in Chapter 1, Season 5 was the most powerful weapon we've maybe ever seen in the game. More commonly known as the P90, the addition of this weapon in-game in both epic and legendary form resulted in a weapon that could deal more damage than Thanos' mythic Infinity Gauntlet if you were hitting your shots. If you were the one getting the eliminations with this gun, it was a great update, but if you were the one being shot by it, it was definitely a bad update. And Epic knew they'd made an oopsie as they nerfed the weapon only 24 hours later. That's when you know something's broken. Now, what's worse than a gun that's too overpowered? A gun that is literally useless. Back in Chapter 2, Season 6, already a season that people didn't like too much, they decided to add one of the most useless weapons into the game. A new content update went live, and the only thing that was added was the recycler weapon. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it when Fortnite try and innovate and do new things with the weapons in game, but this thing was absolutely useless. You had to suck up materials to get ammunition for this weapon. You only had 3 bullets that you could fire with it, as it literally shot trash at people, and if you were lucky enough to hit them, it still didn't do that much damage. It's crazy to think this weapon even got a mythic variant. They tried to make it work, but it was ultimately absolutely useless, and once we rolled into Chapter 2, Season 7, it was gone, and I'll be honest, I don't think we're ever going to see it again. When Fortnite very first added in mounted turrets in Chapter 1, Season 6, these things were broken. They were essentially a trap that you could place on the floor, having 5,800 health, ridiculous fire rates, and a ton of damage. These things could obliterate enemies, but that's not all. You were almost physically impossible to hit from the front, meaning if someone placed down a turret and started shooting you, all you could really do was run. It was fun at first, but got ridiculously annoying very, very quick, and was eventually nerfed later in the season, nerfed again in the following season, and ultimately vaulted at the end of Chapter 1, and we haven't seen it return since. If there's one thing that OG players look back fondly on, it is double pump, and when this was removed, everyone shed a tear. At the beginning of Season 5 in Chapter 1, the ability to swap between shotguns and shoot them instantly was removed. It wasn't an easy technique to pull off, but picking up 2 pumps in the game of Fortnite and successfully pulling off a double pump elimination felt incredible. But it ultimately made shotguns a lot more powerful than they were meant to be, and newer, more inexperienced players had no idea how to pull this off, meaning the skill gap between players that were good and bad was getting too big. So a shotgun delay was introduced, which has been in the game ever since, which meant if you shot with one shotgun and tried to swap to another one, there would be a delay between you being able to shoot another shotgun again. It has evened out the playing field, and still to this day, I would love double pumps to return just for fun, but I don't think it'll ever happen. If there's one gun that has stood the test of time in Fortnite, it's the assault rifle. This gun has been in game since the beginning of Battle Royale, but was removed for the very first time at the beginning of Chapter 3. We all shed a tear, and arguably was one of the most controversial weapon switch-ups in Fortnite history, saying goodbye to the SCAR, the assault rifle, and the OG pump shotgun was definitely a sad day. The pump has been vaulted 4 times in total, and we've got so many different shotguns in game now. And although it felt like an awful change at the time, I do feel like the Fortnite weapon pool is pretty solid at the moment. There was actually a way to get the assault rifle and the pump shotgun into chapter 3 using a glitch with tents, but it doesn't work anymore, and who knows when we'll see these guns back in the game. If you want Fortnite to bring the SCAR and pump back, let them know. Hit the like button on this video. Let's see how many we can get. Imagine building a wall and being damaged through that wall. Well, that was the case for only 12 hours in Fortnite back in Season 6, Chapter 1. Yeah, Season 6 had a lot of controversial updates. In an update that allowed 25% of explosive damage to go through builds. Rocket launchers at the time had a pretty high spawn rate, which meant no matter what you did in Fortnite, if a rocket was coming your way, you'd still take some damage through your builds. It was safe to say people absolutely hated this, and in one of the quickest turnarounds, just 12 hours later, it was reverted from Fortnite, and it's safe to say damage does not go through walls ever since. Not many people may remember this, but in Chapter 1, chests didn't have a 100% spawn chance. But in Chapter 2, they changed it so every chest would always spawn in its location. However, later on in Chapter 2, they decided they didn't like this anymore, and in an update in Chapter 2, Season 4, they reverted it back to chests having a chance of being there or not. People have gotten used to the fact that chests would always be in their favorite locations. They had their drop spots on lock, and now to see chests sometimes not be there, people absolutely hated it. I think a part of the luck that is Fortnite leans into the fact that chests shouldn't always be spawning there, and since then, chests have always had a random chance of spawning. Throughout the years, Fortnite have always been trying to reduce the skill gap between the best players and the worst players. If it gets too big, the bad players just don't want to play Fortnite, which is why they took away 200 damage weapons. In Chapter 3, Season 2, we saw the return of the heavy snipers that hadn't been in the game since Chapter 2, Season 3, but they came back with a heavy nerf. Can you believe the epic and legendary heavy sniper used to deal 313 and 330 damage respectively to the head, but with their return in Chapter 3, it had been reduced to 189 and 198, just 2 damage off that beautiful 200 damage total. That means if you're running around with full shield and full health, you cannot be one-shot killed even by a heavy sniper. This upset a lot of sniper players and players that just like to get that incredible feeling of just one-shotting a player across the map. But it didn't stop there, as Fortnite updated shotguns as well, meaning that the maximum amount of damage that could be dealt by a legendary pump shotgun was reduced to 185, putting a nail in the coffin and saying goodbye to 200 damage weapons in Fortnite. I still remember the day when this happened. I picked up my phone, went on the App Store, and Fortnite was gone. In Chapter 2, Season 3, on the 13th of August 2020, Apple removed Fortnite from the iOS store. This meant that all 1.8 billion Apple devices could no longer play or update Fortnite. This was a reaction to Fortnite bypassing the Apple payment system in the iOS store, meaning that Epic could charge people less money and Apple wouldn't get a cut of those payments. This breached the rules of the Apple store, so Apple were like, no, your game is gone. And 2 years later, this argument has still not been settled, and we may never see Fortnite return to iOS. This hurt the amount of people that could play Fortnite, the amount of people that could watch Fortnite, and it really was a sad day for everyone that was used to playing Fortnite on their iPhones. One of the worst updates in the history of Fortnite happened during one of my favorite seasons. Back in Season 8, Chapter 1, I felt pretty good at Fortnite. I was getting a lot of victory royales. Landing at that wooden ship was my go-to drop spot, and then in the season, they took away Ssiphon. If you don't know what Ssiphon was, when getting an elimination, you'd bump up 50 points of either health or shield, depending on how much health you had. Enemies would automatically drop materials, and the 500 material cap was completely removed. The community was so enraged that hashtag revert the update was trending on Twitter. Fortnite again felt that it was making those good players too good. Maybe they were watching my videos then. But to this day, Ssiphon has not returned to core modes. You still get this in competitive modes, and your overshield will recover quickly in an elimination now in no builds mode, but this update in my books is still one of the worst. What's even worse is having a plane smash through your builds, take you out, yeet you over the map, and kill you from full damage. It's exactly what would happen all the time from the X-Force Stormwing, the plane that was introduced in Chapter 1, Season 7. This thing had a ton of health, a load of damage. You could literally fly around the map, and in a time where there wasn't a lot of maneuverability in Fortnite, these things were ridiculously overpowered. We went from Fortnite saying they would never add vehicles to adding a shopping trolley to then a literal plane. People were not happy with them. They got nerfed continuously throughout Season 7. 7 and eventually vaulted the following season. Don't get me wrong, they were a lot of fun, but oh my gosh, were they so annoying. But even more annoying was a giant sword that gave you additional health and shield and could launch you around the map, dealing stupid damage. Now, getting this thing was not easy. I remember when this was added into the game in Chapter 1, Season 7, landing on top of the ice mountain, trying to pick up the Infinity Blade first, and if you did, you were literally a god. You had 200 health and shield, you moved quicker, but the craziest thing is, this went live and was used during the 2018 Winter Royale semi-finals. That's right, competitive Fortnite players that were literally playing for money and were some of the best in the world had the Infinity Blade on the map, absolutely wrecking havoc. What's weird to me is the fact that a lot of broken things in Fortnite stayed in the game and were just tweaked, but the Infinity Blade was removed 3 days after they added it. And fun fact, this game's actually a shout out to a mobile game called Infinity Blade that Epic Games actually made years and years ago on mobile phones. We had definitely never seen this thing back in Battle Royale. Which leads us to the brutes. You know how much I hate these things, and they still to this day, as you can tell, get me a little bit annoyed. As we've already said, Fortnite was struggling trying to bring that skill gap down between players, and at the end of Chapter 1, they decided that throwing a giant mech on the map that could shoot rockets and jump around would be the best way to give bad players easy kills. If you came up against these things, there was almost nothing you could do. If you didn't have a launch pad to fly away in, you would just get hunted down, shotgunned, missile launched, stomped on. These things were so annoying. The community were enraged. Twitter was trending, trying to get these brutes voted. But Fortnite actually stayed strong and even put out a blog post saying why they'd kept them in the game, saying that only a few people each game were actually getting kills with these things, which in their eyes was absolutely fine. They wanted to give those bad players an easy way of getting eliminations, but as a result were making the better players so annoyed, and a lot of streamers just stopped playing Fortnite during this season. Thankfully, they revolted at the start of Chapter 2, and I want to know, what's the worst update in Fortnite's history in your opinion? You can click on screen here to watch another video before I disappear, so I'll see you over there. Quickly click it.